Welcome to the Rider Outsiders, where we talk CFL football and your Saskatchewan Roughriders. I'm Mitch Wiles with Dylan Robson. Dylan?
You know what? We saw some football on Friday night. I'm excited to talk about. You're excited to talk about. Let's get right to it with some quick hits.
Winnipeg number one quarterback Matt Nichols suffered an injury this week at Blue Bomber practice, a non-contact injury. Team says he's out 4 to 6 weeks. Dylan, how do you think this screws up the Bombers' season?
Well, you know, that's worst case scenario when your quarterback goes down preseason, right before the regular season's ready to start, 4 to 6 weeks. And who do they have back up under Matt Nichols right now?
Not many people with playing time. No one that would the average fan would know, that's for sure. That said, it appeared they had some success in the first preseason game. Well, this is what they did last night. They have 3 quarterbacks play. Alex Ross went 10 for 13, 76%, 78 yards. They also had Chris Streveler, only 3 for 9. You might remember this name. Brian Bennett, former Rough Rider, went 5 for 9, 64 yards, and then a touchdown. Bennett was, I think, third stringer for a year or two with the Riders.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. So, I mean, basically, they got to stick with their backups in this case. That's where I'm looking if I'm Winnipeg.
Yeah, because those backups have been in training camp. It's only been a 3-week training camp, but they've been in training camp. They know the system, and I agree they got to stay with them. But there was a report earlier in the week that Mr. Darian Durant is interested in coming out of retirement to replace the injured Matt Nichols in Winnipeg. And this is, of course, after retiring before training camp, but after pocketing that $70,000 signing bonus. What do you think of Darian Durant possibly making a return to Winnipeg? Do you think that's even in the cards?
Well, I got to look at this from 2 different perspectives. From a Darian Durant fan perspective, I'd say, yeah, you know what? Take the Winnipeg job, go play. But if I'm a Winnipeg, if I'm the management there, I'm just leaving that alone. I'm leaving that alone, and that's why I said stick with their backups earlier on. The Durant thing would have been nice, I think, but he retired. He took the money. He ran. The fans did not appreciate that in Winnipeg. And now that Matt Nichols is gone, like I said, not ideal scenario, but Durant, I'd say leave him alone. That's speaking from a Winnipeg perspective. From that Darian Durant fan perspective, I'd love to see him get in there and play.
Yeah, I don't see there's any chance in head coach Mike O'Shea bringing Darian Durant back to the team after what went down earlier. Okay, another little note. Front office cap. They're looking at the CFL is looking at enlisting a spending cap for football operations, and then Chris Jones with the Rough Riders say this would mean pay cuts, or I guess people getting laid off here. What do you think there about a spending cap to make the costs of the front office for hiring coaches and GMs? That you can't just throw a ton of money out at them. That we need sustainable costs in the CFL. Does this register for you as a fan?
It doesn't register for me at all. I don't know. I didn't know that this was a problem. I didn't know that this was something that was causing imbalance in the league. I'd never heard of this. As a fan, I keep myself.
Got lots of money. Big fan base, got lots of coaches, paying lots of money, and I guess that's part of the inequality that other teams can't throw big money at Chris Jones to get him to leave Edmonton with all his coaches.
Yeah, well, I remember the Riders a long time ago not having a lot of money to throw at coaches, and we survived. I'd like to see the CFL fans support the teams regardless of wins or losses. There may be some other teams that are struggling, a lot harder than we are right now, and if they can't afford the coaches, they can't afford the GMs. I don't know. I don't know what to say because to me, the reality is if it's unsustainable, then it's unsustainable. Maybe, Ambrosie's got a better idea where it's not going to be as bad or as Jones is thinking, or maybe Jones is just trying to, protect his career. Anytime you're talking about major coaches, major GMs, guys who put, 25 hours into their football coaching day, anytime you talk about them taking a pay cut, I'm sure they're not liking it. So, it's one of those things where I'm going to have to side with Jones. I'm going to have to trust that doesn't sound like it's a good idea. And I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting because there is a cap on players, and there wasn't on coaches. So I guess the players might think this is making it a little bit more fair, but this also means there could be a coaches union if the league comes down on these caps. We'll move on, and just I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on this. We haven't talked about it yet, but June 30th, the home game, the Saskatchewan Roughriders will be bringing, it sounds like about 250 people from Humboldt to the game, people affected by the tragedy there. Any thoughts on how special this June 30th game is going to be?
Well, I think it's important to have that well-knit community, that strong community in Saskatchewan show. They are the Saskatchewan Roughriders. It's not the Regina Roughriders. So yeah, bringing in people from Humboldt, bringing us all together. I think that's a great idea. I think Saskatchewan loves to thrive. We're a well-knit community. We're a tight community, and I mean the Humboldt tragedy obviously brought everybody together so well that it only makes sense. Yeah, let's bring in the whole city Humboldt. Give them a section. I'm all down with that for sure.
All right, let's move on. Preseason game number 2 just wrapped up last night. Riders versus Stamps, and it was ugly.
Yes, that's the thing. It wasn't a little bit better than last time. It was just ugly. Last week I said, hey, we're going to see an improved Roughriders. Did we? I don't think so.
39-12. And for those of you that were listening on the radio, but if you were able to catch the highlight package, Zach Collaros got sandwiched between on a sack there. It looked vicious. I guess he was down for a little bit of time. He says he's okay in the post game, but that looked rough.
Yeah, you know what it did? It's one of those things where one guy hits him from behind into another player, and his back ends up folding kind of funny, and he goes down. Let me ask you this: if Zach Collaros' head hits another player in that sandwich, should that be a penalty?
I don't think so. I think they got to target high. The initial contact has to be high.
Okay. So, yeah, obviously, Zach Collaros wasn't necessarily looking that great before he got hit like that. So it's one of those things where O-line probably wasn't performing at their best. O-line's not clicking yet. Let's hope that O-line really gets into a better groove because, it's my understanding, we have an ideal O-line. Hopefully they can get to a better place than they are right now. I heard one fan mention to me, they think Bridge got sacked so fast, it was basically like he took 2 steps off the bench and got sacked. I mean, so it wasn't just Collaros. Riders played, did we play all our quarterbacks? Was it all 4?
Yeah, so we had Zach Collaros went a whopping 6 for 16, 37% for a whopping 41 yards. That looks, on paper, that's pretty ugly. Brandon Bridge went 2 for 5, 21 yards. B.J. Daniels mopped up the fourth quarter, going 0 for 3, 2 interceptions. And he was the guy that got Marquise Williams sort of dropped from the roster. And David Watford was in there, 9 for 17, so I guess the best out of the bunch, 52%, 172 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when Dave Watford's your best guy, maybe you should start looking at some situations to fix that. I know that we do have a strong receiving core, and I think that what we saw on Friday night there isn't necessarily indicative of what we're going to be seeing throughout the year. We still have Roosevelt. We still have Bakari Grant. Mm-hmm. We even have Chad Owens out there for those short passes. So, I mean, I'm confident we're going to see some strong Rough Rider play, as the regular season takes off.
And hopefully we see Chad Owens. I don't think he was dressed for this game, but Roosevelt was out there, 3 for 45 yards. Deron Carter looks healthy. Caleb Hawley. So, yeah, we definitely have that receiving core, but let's not jump over the rushing game. Just get ready for this. So, Zach Stacy, 4 carries, 18 yards. David Watford, 2 for 17. That's the backup quarterback. Trey Mason, 1 for 14. Let's see. Storm Johnson, 2 for 7. David Cobb, 2 for 1. Non-existent. Leading rusher, 18 yards, 4 carries. So I'm not sure what was going on there, if this was strictly a quarterback tryout, but there's something wrong in the rushing game, or they just weren't trying to rush the ball last night.
I think Jones was evaluating QBs. I think that after this week here, we're going to see Jones. Obviously, we're going to be having some major cuts coming here, and Jones, he's going to put us in a position where we're ready to play that opening game. He's going to put us in a position. I honestly trust that. I hope Zach Collaros has a strong week of practice here coming up, because hopefully he's not injured. And you know what?
He says he's okay.
Are you putting Zach Collaros on a short leash this early on in the season?
Well, I think he was on a short leash last night because the O-line wasn't performing well. At least that's what it sort of sounded like, that if they can't create a decent pocket and the quarterbacks are getting creamed, well, you don't have your number one line in there. I understand there was some backups playing, so they pulled Collaros pretty early. I can go over who didn't dress. So Chad Owens and Jake Hardy, Rob Begg didn't dress. Marcus Thigpen, Kevin Francis didn't dress. On for the O-line, Josiah St. John still appears to be injured. Darius Bladdock did not dress. So there's a couple guys out, but the main five there, the starting five, did play. So I'm not sure why there were so much problems with protecting the quarterback.
Yeah, and another thing, I honestly think that Jones keeps the playbook really thin, really simple for preseason games. I don't think he likes to show a whole lot, and I think that when we get to regular season, he's going to get a little more creative. Obviously, all those guys are going to be dressed. We're going to see some actual Rider offense.
I hope so.
Yeah. Those preseason playbooks, I'm confident with Jones, are not even close to a fraction of what we see for the regular season. And we're going to see a better play calling. We're going to see better, more starters dressed, and more things are going to happen for sure. I really believe that for the opening game.
Riders only one defensive sack, Gary Wilkins. So not much coming out of our big two defensive ends, at least on the sack board. Let's jump. Anything else on the preseason you want to get to?
Well, you know what? I wish there was more, but what do we got? One field goal in the second quarter and a couple towards the end there. I mean, ugly. Let's put it behind us.
12 points in the first game, and what was it? You had 12 in the second game. We gave up 39 and 35, so that's nothing to really build on. It's just an evaluation for your backups. You hope, but there's no momentum at all. But
it's pretty consistent as well, yeah.
Yeah. But let's move on to the Glenn Suter meh of the week. And pretty much, if anyone caught the Winnipeg BC game, BC winning 34-21. But if you caught that game right after the Rider game, Suter talked a little bit about the Rough Rider preseason game. Said pretty much, don't read into it. Lots of mismatches. This doesn't necessarily mean anything about the regular season. I think you hear that a lot in the preseason. Don't worry about those two losses. It's not that bad. Not a big deal.
Yeah, and I think, I think that to a point that's right, and that's kind of what I was saying with even with the play calling and the mismatches, the starters not there, the mismatches, as Glenn Suter says, that's a big thing. You got starters against rookies and all this, and it's a time for the coach to evaluate. And he's seeing individual assignments, not like the fans are seeing the whole game, the whole big picture. Coach is seeing it from a whole different perspective. So, yeah, Glenn Suter has a point when he says that. But if you were to ask me what the Glenn Suter met of the week was, it's the whole thing. The fans wanted to see something, and we didn't see anything. So, the whole game was the met of the week, if you ask me.
So 6 days from now, Toronto visits Saskatchewan. What are you looking forward to in that game? This is the defending Grey Cup champs, Ricky Ray, coming to Saskatchewan.
Well, we're going to have to play good. We're going to need a Zach Collaros, healthy Zach Collaros. If not Zach Collaros, then Brandon Bridge is going to have to be on his game as well. I want to see an O-line, because those QBs need the time to look around. They need the time to, identify the play. And those running backs, we got to see a better performance out of that. So, I mean, it's tough to say we gave up a touchdown on special teams on Friday night as well. So, what do we need to do to beat Toronto? Well, we're going to need better everywhere. We're going to need better special teams, defense, offense. So yeah, that's a daunting task.
Yeah, hopefully
I imagine.
they're holding their cards close to their chest, and they're going to unveil something special that they've been keeping secret over the preseason here.
Yeah. Hey, I heard Darian Durant's available.
That's true, and wow, that would be the worst decision ever, I think.
Yeah. No. Honestly, all kidding aside, I really think Zach Collaros has what it takes, and I think that we'll see that as the year goes on. Like I said last week, though, the Rough Riders, we want results fast. Week 1, that's the time for results when it comes to Rider Nation. Toronto coming to Saskatchewan, at home, we're not going to be expecting struggling Riders. We're going to be there as fans. We're going to be expecting big win, big plays, and we better see it because, otherwise those boo birds come out pretty quickly.
Oh, for sure. Most of the pundits have sort of been picking the Riders to be, in that second position in the West. But after these 2 preseason games, I assume some of those predictions are softening a little bit. But we do have 2 quality quarterbacks in there. One of them is going to lead this team this year. And just on paper, the team seems too good to fail. But we'll see. I suppose a couple injuries can really derail a season. But we're rather healthy at the moment. Right, and then within hours from now, apparently Jones and the staff there are going to make the cuts. A little frustrating how the quarterback play just was turned on its head here. I guess it wasn't good in the first preseason game, but I expected. There was a lot of great talk about B.J. Daniels, and then he sort of crapped the bed a little bit there, not making a completion. Also, a big question mark, Jerome Messam hasn't touched the field for either of the preseason games, so is he actually the starting running back for the team, or is it one of these 4 NFL guys that they brought in over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, it would be really nice to see some solid, and if we're guessing, hey, I guess that means the opponents are guessing too. So that's good. I don't think Jerome Messam needs a preseason to get going.
True.
He's been around the CFL long enough to just give me the ball and hit that line. And I think that's what we're going to see next week.
Awesome. Well, we'll be back next week. And the game's on Fridays. We'll be back after that game. And this one will be on TV, so I'm going to have a little bit more to say. And will you be in the stands there, Dylan?
Oh, you better believe it.
So we'll get Dylan's report from the stands and how you saw it from the bleachers. All right, that's the show for this week, and we'll be back next week for Dylan Robson. And,
how you doing over there?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
You're doing good.
A little tired. I had the baby for a couple minutes as well. That's it for this week. For Dylan Robson, I'm Mitch Wiles. This was the Rider Outsiders.